Hello and welcome to the Animal Enrichment Workshop. Today I'm going to be explaining how I've grown my natural enrichment item and how you can too. Starting with the seeds and then getting to the final product, which is our loofah. So let's get into it. So loofahs are typically used as a body care exfoliation product that you can grow. I'm going to be using them primarily for parrot enrichment, birds. That's what I mostly work with, so I've got a lot of ideas for birds in these videos, but otherwise just as a tearing and playing and tactile ripping apart enrichment item. So starting out with the seeds. Now I purchased my seeds from the Seed Collection, which is an online Australian seed bank. They've got an excellent range, excellent prices. They come really fast. They tell you how to grow the plants successfully and which climates are best. So they did an excellent job, and that's where I purchased a lot of different seeds from. Now to start out with your loofah seeds, they do need to go through a scarification process before they're going to successfully germinate. So instead of just getting the seed and putting it straight into the soil, what I've found is I did a couple of different tests and found out which worked best. I've got a little bit of sandpaper here, anything to get the hard outer husk of this seed away. Now the scarification is just creating little cuts and scratches so the water can get in to that kernel, which is how it grows. Otherwise this is a hard protective outer layer. We don't want that. So instead of just doing a little cut and letting the water get in, I've found if you're delicate enough and you can release that kernel from inside, then that's what works best. So I'm gently using my sandpaper to scrape away anything like this. I think it's going to rock the camera around a little bit, but I'll finish this and I'll explain as I'm getting into it what I'm doing. Alright, so I've got to the stage now where I've just got the seed and I've scratched a little bit and gone around and around until I've got a little split in here. So that's perfect. If you've got nails, that's even better. Otherwise you might be able to use some small tools to be able to get in. But I want to pry away at the outer black layer. And I've done this really well at the moment. So with the seed, gone all the way around until I've sort of taken out the outer bit of the middle, and now it's just going to fold off if I'm gentle enough. Perfect. And I'm peeling back that a little edge here until I've got a nice little green kernel, and even still that's going to be perfect the way it is. You want to be pretty careful because these internal kernels are really delicate and they can break quite easily. So as long as you've got access for water to get to that internal kernel, which might be focusing, you might be able to see, because these are so hard and protected, even a little crack gets water in, but I found exposing it as much as you can is going to get the best results, the fastest germination really. I'm not sure how much it affects the growth of the plant, but it germinates a lot faster the sooner you can get that water into the kernel for growth. And so I think about 5 to 7 days is when I started to see some real quick germination occurring with what I'd done this way, and the other little scarification tests I did took up to about 14 days. So you're just taking out about a week. It's just nicer to see it growing faster, and you know which is going to work and which seeds might be duds and not going to germinate. So I've then gone and got little seed trays, filled them up with seedling mix, and you want to make little holes, get that internal kernel, drop it in about 1 centimeter or so below the surface, and gently push the top of the soil over. Wet it down, leave it in a bright, warm spot to be able to germinate. Be very careful because obviously you don't want it too hot and the little seedlings come out and they get burnt and just absolutely damaged by the sun. But otherwise, being very careful, it'll start out with 2 little dicot leaves from that seed, and then you're going to want to allow it to grow for a couple of weeks into a few months maybe, until you've got about 3 to 4 true leaves. So the first 2 leaves that come out, little baby leaves, you want 3 or 4 past that point, and they look like little maple, sort of looking like leaves, and they'll start getting their little tendrils and that kind of stuff. Once you get to that stage, then they're ready to be transferred to the garden. They've got a bit of size, they're a bit more protected, but you do need to be quite careful of little pest species, of bug and that kind of thing getting into it. But after they've grown to that size, I'm now going to take you out into the garden and show you what mine look like at this current stage. So they do need to grow along a trellis because they've got tendrils and they form a vine. Now, once they've got a decent amount of size to that vine, they start to develop flowers, and those flowers have to be pollinated before the loofah starts to grow behind it. So I've got a varying degree of ripeness and sizes on my vine, as you can see. Some really small ones, some really large, deep green ones, and then they start to lighten up like this when they're getting ready to be harvested. So you do have to let them dry out on the vine for them to be properly harvested for enrichment items, unless you want to eat them. But otherwise, as long as they sound hollow, they're really dry and they're starting to die off, snip them off and then bring them inside ready to be used for your enrichment purposes. Alright, so here we are with the finished products. Now, these are ones that have had their outer shells taken off. Once they dry out on the vine, you snap them off, you cut them off, they're ready to go. So birds are primarily what I'm thinking of and using all of my enrichment items for. These I really want to use for raptors, for tactile enrichment and pulling apart, just mimicking that plucking of prey, ripping prey apart and that kind of thing, as well as using it for parrots because obviously they're using their beaks a lot for foraging, getting into nuts and that kind of thing out in the wild. So you could give it to the animals straight up like this and they could tear it apart themselves. Otherwise, if you're wanting to get it to this stage, you can use scissors to cut it up, string them on a line or a piece of branch or something like that, stick, getting like a little shish kebab kind of thing going on. But otherwise, once you've got to this stage, it's as easy as just cracking it and then peeling back that outer layer to get to the loofah inside. Alrighty then. So once out, you've got your loofah like this. Should in the middle be full of seeds for next time, which is fantastic. So as mentioned, I got mine from the Seed Collective. My first batch of seeds was like $3 or something for 35 seeds, so quite good. And then heaps in there. I'm gonna have to massage that to get more out. I don't want to destroy it too much myself. But otherwise, I've got seeds, so many seeds. Seeds to be able to give away to friends, family, and that kind of thing if they want to use it in and around the home. Now, the best part about this, I think, is that it's a real sort of passive enrichment that you can create as you're going about your day doing other stuff. So it does take quite some time to get to this finished product. It was around 4 months from planting until I was able to start harvesting my first loofahs. Now, it doesn't start out that you've got a massive harvest all at once. They are sort of going along, chugging along nicely. So I've got a few here to show you guys. I've got a few packed away. And I've still got some green loofahs on the vine which are growing and ripening up from small ones to large ones. So it does continuously give as the months go on. So to get to this stage, about 4 months, obviously a very long time to get to this enrichment piece, but it does sort of go and care for itself. If you plant an enrichment little garden at work or enrichment garden at home and that kind of thing, the only really thing you're doing is making sure that pests aren't getting to the leaves and it's getting watered. So if you've got rain coming through, you really don't have to care for it too much at all. Other than that, if you're gardening during the summer and springtime months, you might need to add a bit of water to it to keep the plants happy and growing. And that's all you really need to do. So I really think it's fantastic for that, and you can make your other stuff during that period, and then all of a sudden you've got heaps that you can pack away and use. It's not something that you really need to tend to. It's just something that you need to get into now and then let it sort of play the long game with this enrichment piece. So as always, thank you very much for watching. Happy enriching, and until next time, goodbye.